Hello, and welcome to the Jerich Show. I am Javvad Malik. As always, pleasure to be your host. And today it is the camera episode.
Welcome to the Jerich Show, featuring your hosts Javvad Malik and Erich Krohn. Timely topics, poorly presented.
And alongside me, as always, is the dashingly handsome, in his new office, might I add, Erich Krohn.
Yes, it's nice to be here. And yes, we have the new office, the new background. We're just trying to, up the ante a little bit here and become a little bit more presentable.
Speak for yourself. So is that a real background you have behind you? Is that just...
It is. No, that is a real background. It is not a green screen or anything. I got to say, I know that you put a little effort into yours as well, although that whiteboard still looks crooked.
No. It's only because I've got it at an angle. But I assure you that is straight. Oh, let me
just because, ladies and gentlemen,
the gap between the ceiling and the whiteboard, it was equal from that side to that side. It's only because this is at an angle. But yes, you did bully me into straightening that up a few days ago. I had to wake up super early, take it off, draw new holes, fill in new old holes,
painted everything. Yeah, it was amazing, actually. So for those of us on the podcast listening to this from there, I've been harassing poor Javvad about his whiteboard behind him for ages now because he put it up crooked. But he did fix it, although his camera is still angled right now. So, we'll have to see how this works out. Anyways, let's move on to some stories today, Javvad. What do you say?
Yeah, so like I said in the pre-roll, we are talking about cameras today. What do cameras know about you, and what do you know about your camera? So security startup Verkada, they are a manufacturer of smart cameras. Many organizations bought their products because they're cool. You just drill them in, put them in the wall, and then you can monitor them from wherever you are without running expensive cables all the way around the country. They had cameras installed by the likes of Tesla, the NHS here in the UK, and all these kinds of things. But apparently they left one of their admin passwords lying around somewhere. Someone was walking along. They said, "Oh, what's this? It looks like a password of some sort." They put it in, and all of a sudden they could access every single one of these cameras. What do you make of it, Erich?
Yeah, so apparently this was a password that was posted on the internet somewhere, and they ran across it. Now, I think it's interesting. It's considered a startup with 150,000 cameras. I mean, that's a pretty significant startup, quite frankly. But the interesting thing, or the sad thing about this is, not only did they have all of this information, but they also apparently had like past video, and they had archives that they could get to using this, and the whole nine yards. So, it's one of these lessons where we have to understand that cameras are everywhere, surveillance is everywhere. I understand in the UK, you guys have quite the CCTV setup, where here, we're still getting it around a little bit more. But we're always on camera. There's always cameras everywhere. And in this case, again, something simple like leaving a password out there has allowed these people to access all of this information. And you mentioned in the NHS, there were some issues there where, they were in medical places as well. So not a good look, unfortunately.
No, not at all. I think that there's some of the clients are like gyms, hospitals, jails, schools, police stations, even Verkada's own offices. Yeah,
I believe there was some facial recognition stuff going on here too, where they could get access to that. And of course, there were some issues in a police station where they were having like people in booking rooms actually being, seeing that kind of video. That could be pretty ugly if they start rolling that out there for everybody else, right?
Yeah. And I think one of the things I was thinking of is that the question arose, like, is this a GDPR violation for us in the UK, especially in regards to the NHS? And the question is, it depends on what data was captured. thing is, it's not very easy. You need to go through it manually, or by and large, to go through and see where people's identities exposed, where any customer records available and picked up on the camera. But it's not as easy as doing a command line search across a database to see what data was stored and what could have been exposed. So
yeah, that's an interesting point. And I'm just sitting here noodling through this as you said that, because, you know, with GDPR, is it a matter of, you know, when data is removed, then that could be an issue. But, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And what is video, right? It's a bunch of pictures. So is it a GDPR violation if the video is lost, where they could then find the person through like a Google image lookup or something like that, facial recognition? If they could find that information from there, is that a GDPR violation? That's a really interesting angle.
I believe so. Because if you can pinpoint someone as being at the hospital in so-and-so procedure area or treatment zone, you've exposed a lot of information, or you can infer a lot of information from that, even if it's not explicitly mentioned there. But
yeah, very interesting.
Erich Krohn in the neurosurgeon's clinic, having an MRI, lying down in the MRI machine that covers the brain and the neck. I can infer some things about your health and well-being at that point.
It's interesting that you know that I've already done that. So
they were using Verkada's cameras in the office.
Apparently, yeah. All right. So what else we got?
So that's one thing. So before actually we wrap up, I think it's a good reminder for organizations, if you're buying any of these internet connected things, and I think from a purist security perspective, it's very easy to say, well, if it's connected to the internet, it's not secure. So the only secure camera is one that doesn't have any smart capabilities. But we know that's not practical. I think one of the real tests is that review what can be accessed by whom. Simple things like, can you change the admin password once you get it? Does it actually force you to change the admin password on first install? That's an important first step. Can you disable backups going to the cloud, and can you force them to go into your own network so that they're not accessible outside of your environment? Do they have a patching process in place? So if there is a vulnerability found, how does the vendor push out a patch? Does it go directly to the cameras? If so, what else can they push directly to cameras? Or do they send it to you? And if so, how do you then upload those to all the cameras? These are all logistical things that I think not many people think about, because, you know, let's face it, a lot of these purchases are made by physical security teams, and very little involvement is by cybersecurity. But these are all software controlled devices. The camera is just the physical manifestation of it, but it's all software. So get someone from cybersecurity involved.
So as you mentioned that, though, Javad, I have a bunch of cameras here in my house that are called they're Dahua or Dahua or something like that. I don't even know how to say it right. But they have been rumored to call back home to China quite a bit, right? So I knew that going into it, so I took steps. They're all on their own subnet. They speak to what's called a Blue Iris server that has 2 network cards in it. One is on its own subnet, and then I can access it through the other one on my main subnet and be able to see it. But there's no way they can get to the internet the way that I have these put out there. So I knew the risks and I adjusted for it. And I love the quality from the cameras. I love what goes on with them. But it is an interesting point. The average person is just going to pop those in, and boom, next thing you know, they're connected out there. And we don't necessarily think about that. Like you said, even on the physical security side, those folks don't necessarily think about that.
Indeed. So that's one thing about this camera. And another aspect we think about a lot when it comes to photos, and particularly from an OSINT perspective, is metadata. And metadata captures a ton of information in the background. What was the camera model, what the date and time was when it was taken, the location, all that kind of thing. But you can turn that off, and a lot of privacy conscious people end up turning it off. A lot of websites actually strip that information out for you now. So when you upload it to certain social media sites, they will strip it out so no one else can download the picture and then do a lookup on that. But apparently there are other ways you can gather data from these photos that are not pure metadata. And there's Dr. Jennifer Golbeck, who is at the University of Michigan, has an amazing TikTok account that we just discovered this week. And so let's just let me just pull up the
on a camera lens. Facebook's filed a patent for their people you may know feature. Let me just someone that you might want to.
Let's just do that from the beginning.
Facebook
okay.
can figure out people that you might know by analyzing the patterns of dust and scratches on a camera lens. Facebook's filed a patent for their people you may know feature, the thing that recommends someone that you might want to become friends with. And the way that it works is this. Imagine we're at an event and I'm taking pictures. I take a photo of you that you really like. We don't know each other, but I show it to you, I send it to you, and you post it on your Facebook page. I do the same thing with someone else. So none of us are in the same pictures. None of us know each other. I've just taken a picture of you and someone else, and you've both posted them on your Facebook page. Facebook can then analyze the dust and lens scratches that were on my camera and find the invisible artifacts that those have left in the photo to determine that you both had your picture taken by me at the same time, and then recommend that you become friends. When reporters found this patent, Facebook did not.
That's quite amazing. That's quite scary as well. So just to clarify, in case the audio wasn't clear on that, and we'll post links to Jen's TikTok account and this video and Twitter account. Is that every camera is unique because of the wear and tear on it. There are pixels that are missing sometimes, there are scratches on the lens, there are dust, there's other artifacts. So if it knows that two people have had their photo taken by the same camera, it will start to recommend, hey, you might be friends with each other, which is pretty creepy. This kind of reminds me of when Messenger, a few years back, I assume they still do it, they were accessing all your contacts. And what was happening is that patients of the same therapist were getting referrals for each other to become friends because they both had the same therapist's phone number in their details. So I don't know, Eric, what do you make of this? This is quite unique.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I've been, I've been aware of the individual characteristics of cameras for a while. So I've done a lot of stock photography in my past. I still sell on micro stock sites, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things that's a tool in, say, Lightroom is you can actually go through, and if you have dust on your sensor, you can actually set it to repair this little area. And then all of the pictures you've taken, when you bring it in, part of the workflow is to automatically correct that, right? So thinking back on that and going, that is definitely a point of information that I never thought about using it for this sort of way. But that every single picture has this little area. Like you said, it may be one tiny little pixel, or one may be a little bit dark or something like that. And you can adjust for that in post-processing. But to use it in this way to now tie people together, and maybe even getting to the point that you can pinpoint the person that took that photo. Let's say it's a photo of something that is maybe questionable, or let's say let's go total tinfoil hat here, government surveillance, and they see you took a photo of somebody in something they don't like. Well, now all of a sudden they can pinpoint it back to you and that specific camera. It's kind of like what we saw a long time ago, where the gal had stole some information, printed it, and they were able to tie it back to them because of individual prints from that from that printer that embedded some things, right? This isn't embedding it, but it's using the same kind of information. So it's actually quite scary when you start thinking about stuff like this.
It is, you're right. And I remember that the printers, and even before that in Cold War Russia, there was the typewriters that had the same feature built in, so that if you were typing up any propaganda material, they could actually find out who typed it up and come back for you. But this is kind of like almost like a natural identifier that they're using to try and track you. So it's so this is the link that the good doctor has posted to the patent. You can see it's currently assigned to Facebook. Now, this doesn't actually prove that they're using it. I mean, they could be using other methods, and she says that in a video. But the fact is that it's a technique that can be used. So I do recommend go follow Jen on Twitter or TikTok. Dr. Jen Golbeck is her TikTok account, and it's really good. And speaking of Lightroom and fixing some of your scratches, surprise, surprise, Adobe had some security fixes released. Are you a user of these products? Did this impact you?
Yeah, I have used a lot of Adobe stuff. We use like Adobe, the PDF one. We got, we use that kind of stuff quite a bit. And this is in place so often across so many different areas. That's where this gets a little bit crazy. And I think there were 8 different vulnerabilities that were fixed in this patch. And a majority of them were critical because they allowed remote code execution, which is always kind of a scary thing. Whenever you have something that allows remote code execution, that's obviously got to be a critical one to look at. And to be able to do this across something as big as the Adobe suite, this was a pretty big one. And I haven't seen a whole lot flowing around out there about this, but this is pretty significant, actually.
It is indeed. It is indeed. And, so this is one part where I'm kind of like torn. Like Adobe, they moved everything into their cloud platform. So Photoshop and Lightroom and Premiere, whatever it is, it's all there. And I've never been a big fan of it, purely because it just costs more money. On a monthly basis, you feel like I have to use a product because I'm paying $5 or $10 or whatever it is a month for it. But it also does show that it does create these, while it creates a far more seamless patching process, and you can roll out new features, and you don't need to wait a year for the new magazine to come out where you pull off the new Photoshop CD and you install it once a year, the updates. I'm dating myself by saying that. But, it also does form this point of failure as well, whereas the main infrastructure is compromised or attacked, or if you yourself have lost internet connectivity, you kind of like are at the mercy of a lot of factors that are outside of your control. So I think that's something that I often think about, and it's always here or there when it comes to this kind of model.
Yeah, I've never been a huge fan of the subscription model, quite frankly. And like you, I think it's because it ends up costing you so much more. It really does. And yes, it's nice to be able to update to the newest, latest, greatest version, but I find that a lot of times I don't need those features that are in the latest, greatest version. And yet it costs significantly more as we continue to go down that road. So, I'm just going to throw this out there. I believe you can still download Adobe CS2 Photoshop for free, actually, and it's a legit download, the whole 9 yards, if I'm not mistaken, out there. So you can run it locally if you need to. But it is an older version, so who knows? It is what it is, right?
It is. And before you tell me off, thejerichshow.podbean.com if you want to listen to the podcast, The Jerich Show on Twitter and on YouTube. And I haven't told you this, Eric, but for most of this episode, you've been heavily pixelated. So people are going to see an improvement. It was really funny because a lot of it, your face was pixelated, but the background still looked quite nice. So
nice, yeah, lovely. Lovely. So, that's compression artifacts, as you know.
And you have this weird mask in the top corner on your shelf. Do you go to those kind of parties often?
No, that was actually from my stepbrother. He worked in New Orleans for a number of years, so that's a Mardi Gras mask that he got. It was a Christmas gift, man. A Christmas gift. Back off, all right?
And you got a dad on the shelf under that. Is that something you've got to remind yourself that you've got a dad, or is that something your kids gave to you to remind you that you're a dad?
This one right here, actually, it has little things on it. You can put pictures of the kids on it as well. So I will say this. I did not decorate all of this stuff. My wonderful wife did an amazing job making it look good. I'd have just piled crap on there, like over here is the stuff that I did. There's a can right there of a chocolate-covered scorpions from RSA like 8 years ago or 10 years ago. That's my work. The rest of it, all her.
So what's one of your favorite books in the background there? Well, we all know that Eric actually doesn't read books, so he's got nothing to say. We'll get Mrs. Crone on next week and we ask her what are the best books. Until then, stay secure, my friends.